Let's talk, folks. So here's the deal. First segment, here's what I want to do. Let's do a segment about Silent Hill 2. I want to get this out of the way because I'm excited to tell you about my thoughts after having played it all day long. But I promise you this segment will be spoiler-free. I'm not going to tell you about the story of the game or critical parts of the game because I don't want you to be spoiled if you're going to play it yourself. It actually doesn't come out for everyone as of yet. It comes out, I believe it's tonight, like 9 p.m. Pacific time, to midnight Eastern, that you can play it if you buy it normally. So I'm not going to be a jerk and just spill the beans about the entire game. All right, but here's what I would like to say. 5 hours in, I played it for about 5 hours yesterday. Okay, Silent Hill 2 Remake for me is the equivalent of what was done several years ago. At this point, it was like 5 more years ago, right? With Resident Evil 2 Remake. What Capcom did with Resident Evil 2 Remake is they kept the same story, the same general locations, enemies, and elements of the original Resident Evil 2, but they completely recreated it from the ground up as a modern game. They redid the entire map with, Raccoon City Police Department. The gameplay elements were now third person over the shoulder instead of tank control, classic survival horror. The entire game was basically renovated from the ground up to be modern. And because of that, at the time, I told you guys, I actually felt like that was my favorite survival horror game in a very long time. Okay? Now, the Resident Evil 2 Remake went down to sell insanely well and actually created an entire new line of horror games for Capcom, including they remade Resident Evil 3, then they remade Resident Evil 4, right? But then they also made Resident Evil 7 and 8. So they've been hitting a high note ever since Resident Evil 2 Remake. That's really the game that gave Capcom their legs back when it came to survival horror. Silent Hill 2 Remake, for me, at least 5 hours in, I don't know if the game will fall flat on its face halfway through. 5 hours in, this is exactly the same situation. All right, what Bloober Team did is they took all the story elements, they took the atmosphere, they took the characters, they took the basic gameplay mechanics, and they recreated them in a modern way. So now when you play the game, it's not about, oh, the controls are so clunky, or, oh, the graphics are kind of rough here, or, oh, I can't figure this out because it's so outdated and stuff. No, it feels modern. At the same time, they did a really great job of making it feel tense, making it still feel scary, because that is kind of the problem with a lot of modern horror games. They're too easy, and when they become too easy, there's no more element of risk or being scared. Like, why are you going to be scared if you have 7,000 bullets, right? You would never be scared. You have too much ammo. What if there's a million health items, right? Or what if the enemies are just so easy to kill that it's not a big deal? They did a good job of now not really doing that. Like, there's ammo in the game, but it's not overabundant. Enemies take a few shots to kill, so you're using more than just a couple shots to kill each enemy. Or you could be more strategic. You shoot them in the leg and then you run up and beat them with your melee weapon. The melee combat is modern, but at the same time, it becomes tense when you're fighting more than one enemy at a time. It's really difficult, actually, to not take damage. And the further in I get, the tenser it's actually getting for me. Okay? So, yeah, I'm having a great time with the game. Overall, first of all, let's talk about the graphics. Keep in mind, I'm playing on PC. I can't attest for how this game plays on PS5. On PC, once I tweaked the graphical settings for the initial setup, it was amazing. The only thing that people said you have to turn off, I think it's called like SSR or something like that. It's one of these graphical effects. I turned that off because it was recommended by everyone who had a review copy that was screwing up the frame rate. So once I turned it off, I've got ray tracing on. I think I put shadows on medium rather than full. Not that you need full shadows, I said medium, but everything else is like maxed. Like every effect is maxed, and I've got it on, unlocked frame rate. The game is just running beautifully. 120 frames on my PC at 1080p resolution, just gorgeous. Okay, the fog, which was the #1 complaint when they remade this game for PS3 in HD, the fog looks great. The way they generate the fog, and it's always right in front of you, and when you walk into it, it's kind of gone, but then it's always moving with you. It's kind of really unique and creepy in a way. It's kind of, I think, what they were imagining originally with Silent Hill. So that's done really well. And overall, they redesigned Silent Hill to feel like a real vibrant town. Like you're walking through it, and everything looks like it would be a real town. Oh, here's a shop. Here's a building where people live. Here's the post office. You know, really cool. Looks very realistic. And what they did, okay, just like Resident Evil 2 Remake, the same pacing and story happens, but with different gameplay elements. So now, as soon as you hit Silent Hill, there's a town to explore with all new buildings and puzzles and things. I don't want to spoil what they are, but it's all new. It doesn't play at all like the original game. It's like, wow, I'm playing a new game, but I am still playing Silent Hill 2. It feels so cool in that regard. Now, there are some things that I feel like they've probably changed a bit. Already, I can tell you some minor censorship, okay, with a couple scenes that I've seen so far. Not over-censored, but definitely minor censorship. And I think it's because we're in 2024 and times have changed. And, you know, God forbid that they actually had some of the elements from 24 years ago. I think the game came out in 2001. So 23 years ago, things were different. We were still in the risque era of games where over-the-top shit could happen. Today, you'd probably get canceled, or basically the game would be rated like X if they had some of the shit in it that was in the original. To be honest, you know, I really feel like things have changed in that regard. I'm also wondering, as we move forward in the game, there's a particular boss in this game that is such a mind fuck, okay, when you figure out what it is and what it's supposed to represent. And I wonder if they're going to do that, or if they're going to completely throw that plot away, because, again, for modern audiences, they may not be able to handle it. When I found out about it, when I played this game first in 2012, and people were like, that's what that just was, I was like, what? Like, even I couldn't believe it. I was like, nah, you guys are making that shit up. And people were like, no, seriously, we're not. Oh, so I'm curious how they're going to handle it. But, you know, the character models, are they different? Yes, but they're good. I don't know why people want to complain about anything just because it's different. It's like people are so afraid of change that any change is bad. We just wanted a frame-by-frame recreation of Silent Hill 2. Then why don't you just fucking play Silent Hill 2? Why do you know what I'm saying? Like, leave the remake alone. Let it be its own thing. If they change some things, good. Let it feel fresh and different. I think the character models are fine. The new voice acting is better than the voice acting from the original game by a mile, by the way. So, I'm enjoying my time with the game a lot. So, graphics, great. Improved gameplay, yes. Music. I'll be honest, in the first 5 hours, finally, they're starting to play some of the iconic music that I remember from the game. For some reason, it seems like the music's good, don't get me wrong. And there's a lot of atmospheric music, like it'll ramp up when stuff's going to happen to scare you. But they haven't really played the iconic tunes yet. Finally, near the end of last night's stream, they started playing that song. They finally played it. I was like, ah, finally. Now I'm remembering. Now it connects me back to the past and when I played it the first time and how I loved that music, right? So, that's pretty great. And I mean, honestly, do I have any complaints at all? Like, I'm trying to think. I would actually have to, like, nitpick and be hard-pressed to find complaints about the game. What I will say is this, all right? I am playing on normal difficulty for a good reason. I want to make good progress every time I play. I don't want to get stuck on parts. And now this playthrough that is already going to be 16 to 18 hours long ends up being 30-plus hours, but that extra 10 hours is boring to the viewer, okay? I've confirmed if you play the game on hard, number one, the combat, basically here's what happens with the combat. There's more enemies, and the enemies are more aggressive. So half the time now when I'm fighting enemies, I'm playing it smart. I'm trying to create these one-on-one encounters. But if there's 2 or 3 enemies in a room, it gets very difficult, even on normal. Like, they're ganging up on you. On hard, they just always gang up on you. Like, no matter what, they're always around you, beating the shit out of you. And it's actually not very fun at all, to be honest. Like, I wish it was, but it's just not fun. It's just like, that's what you do once you've already played the game once, and you've enjoyed the story, and you've enjoyed the vibe. Now you want to put yourself into a challenging situation, then you play hard. Like, if you play it on the first time, I feel like it just makes the playthrough a tedious task, and I don't want to make this first playthrough tedious to the audience or myself. The other thing is the puzzles. The puzzles actually get significantly harder just by going from normal to hard. And again, What's the most boring part of a survival horror stream? If the streamer gets stuck on a puzzle and they can't advance the game at all because they can't figure out the solution to the puzzle, so they sit there for 20 minutes trying to do it, or else they just look it up. What's the point of that? No one's going to enjoy that. So that's why I'm playing it on normal for the first run. I'm happy I am. I think I would have regretted it if I actually did hard on the first run. But so far, 5 hours in, Silent Hill 2 is hitting it on all cylinders. It's checking off every box of what you would want for a modern remake of a horror classic. It really is resonating with me as the next Resident Evil 2 remake. I hope it stays on that level. And I can't wait to play more of it tomorrow.